What's up, friends? Takeover community, sports card people, anyone that stumbles across this video. I'm here today to talk about, the clutter that can sometimes come out of our sports card collecting, the way in which sometimes we can keep cards around for longer than we actually should, or things that we're just no longer into, just sitting around on shelves and, just sometimes it feels like it can swallow you. At least that's the way that it feels for me. So I was looking at things like the individual Marie Kondo, who has and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, it's either the KonMari or KonMari method, but she talks a lot about decluttering your home, and she's into tidying. It's based around everything you own in your house, going room to room, decluttering, seeing if things spark joy, as she puts it. But this, I think we can take and hone in on sports cards, on our own collections, whether it be our inventory for flipping, our own personal collection, or just what we have around us. So, although the tidying method for her is usually about your whole house, I'm going to just zoom it in, microscope onto the hobby. It's as simple as first just looking at your collection, looking at that. What's there? What do you have? If you're a sports card seller or just a sports card collector, then maybe dividing those, if you're both like myself, into things that are, inventory that maybe you've had sitting around for a while or you've been sitting on, versus your own personal collection, and keeping those separate and then looking at those and addressing them individually. Basically, looking at those things, especially let's say your personal collection, and looking at those cards and seeing if you actually enjoy them. Do they actually spark joy like Kondo talks about? Is it something that makes you happy to have in your collection, or is it something that you've just been hanging on to and now it's not really something you're into so much anymore? Then looking at maybe your business inventory. Is it something that's felt kind of stagnant, something that's been sitting around, something that you haven't wanted to get to? Maybe those are the things to work on getting out first this time around. Basically, just if it doesn't spark joy, or if it's not offering you something that is meaningful to you, moving on from it. I think that when you look at those items, you can learn so many lessons about your buying patterns and your history of buying. Maybe you bought something because you thought it would be a really good flip, and it turned out it wasn't. You get a chance to look at why you thought it would be back then, and that's something that you can translate to a future purchase, a future player, whatever that is. Maybe you had a specific goal for it. Did the price move up or down? These are all things to think about. Why did you buy it? Was it for your personal collection, or was it a flip piece? Did you buy it out of FOMO? I think so many of us bought things out of FOMO, especially when it seemed like the prices on everything were going up, up, and up. You saw people creating historically high prices for cards and auctions and purchases and whatnot. And now they might be sitting on those cards. And yeah, it does suck if those things dropped. It does suck if they went down 50, 60%. But it might just be time to cut ties with those rather than sit on them. Unless you're in a place where it doesn't really matter and you don't feel cluttered by it. But sometimes it's just meaningful to clear up that mental, emotional, and physical space. That can really break something open for your next move, even if it's outside of cards. It just frees up so much energy internally, I think, when you move on from those things, and then you get to learn from them too. I think also a lot of people bought things as status pieces out of ego. We saw people on their IG grids getting these really sweet cards, and then FOMO plays into that too. You rush and you also want to get one of those cards, but it's not even really about something that you wanted. It's about something that you thought either you got to try to impress someone else, or something that you thought they would find impressive. And then the thing is, it never really is that impressive. It's cool when someone has a really cool card, but I think it's cooler when you see someone genuinely joyful about what they got, even if it's, this Travis Taylor base card that's right next to me, which I do love. because I love collecting Baltimore Ravens cards, even when they're just random base ones. I just think it's so important to declutter, to open up that stagnant space, or like that stagnant inventory can like be stagnant energy internally, and I think it's important to shake that loose. And I think this is a great time to do it, kind of like rolling into the fall. It feels kind of good. When you do sell some of those cards, you'll be amazed at like how much it adds up, even if the value dropped on those cards, or maybe you paid a lot for it because it was a PC item, but that PC item just doesn't give you that same spark of joy or happiness having it anymore. You might just sell it and break even. You might make some money, you might lose some money. You don't know. We'll find out. But it can benefit you in so many ways. You might be able to pay off some pesky bills that have built up, maybe because of your card buying, maybe because of other things. You might be able to put it into new cards to flip that are a better option now, because you've learned things over time, and you know now what to buy to hold on to in the future, whether it be 2 weeks, 6 months, 5 years, or you might be able to put it into a new personal collection item, piece of memorabilia, or a card that you want, or anything. It doesn't even have to be in cards. You might even want to just like take a family trip, depending on how much you're able to sell, or you might grab a nice night out at your favorite restaurant, or take your partner on a date, or take yourself on a date. I don't know, like there's so many things you could do. There's so much money tied up, I think, in those things that we just hang on to sometimes, that this gives us an opportunity to kind of get that back and reassess what we're doing in collecting. It also just allows you to clean your home. A lot of it is inventory for me, just because I am a business, but there's a certain amount of stuff that's like things I thought I wanted to collect, and when I go back through, I'm like, maybe at that time I wanted that, I don't want it anymore, or maybe I did buy it out of an ego thing, or something like that. But it can just declutter your home or your office, and that feels good. That feels so much better too. I know that when my space is cluttered, my mind feels cluttered, and when my space feels clean, I have this like refreshed, rejuvenated energy. And I think sometimes it can be hard, because I think, if I sell this now, what if I decide I want it? But 99% of the time I find out that I guess I wasn't as attached to that as I thought I was. Or, if it comes to a time down the road when I do really want it back, like, I'll buy another one, right? But usually, once again, that doesn't happen. Years will pass, and I'll be like, that was cool to have at that time, but wasn't really something that I needed, I guess. I think another thing that ties all to this, at least I can speak for myself, and maybe this will help you too, but I think the sunken cost fallacy comes into it with a little dash of stubbornness, if I'm thinking about myself. Because when I do buy something that I want to be an item that I flip, I will get a few things will happen. I will get stubborn about it going well, which will cause me to hang on to something for too long sometimes. If it's going down, this is a situation to situation thing. But when something has gone down, if you are not in absolute financial need to let go of that and move on from that, and you truly do believe that it can come back up, then by all means hang on to it. But if you're just hanging on to it out of the sunken cost fallacy, which let's just define that really quick, just in case, watcher, you don't know. So the sunken cost fallacy is a phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course that they've been doing only because they're invested heavily in it. So then, even when it's clear that abandoning that previous strategy or way of doing things is beneficial to them, they won't do it. That's what sunken cost fallacy is. So, anyways, sometimes I get stubborn about that and want to hold on to see it go the opposite direction. But the thing is, sometimes, say something drops 30%, and it seems like it's going to keep going down. If you get out of that item and then you flip it into another thing and you make a little bit, and you flip that into something else and you make a little bit more, and then you flip that into something, like eventually you'll actually you will probably reach the dollar amount you desired that single card to go to in the future way faster by getting out of it, going into something else that you were more certain about, and flipping that and getting little small percentages along the way. Say if you wanted it to go to a certain price in 1 year, if it went down, you probably will go way past that price by getting out of it, putting it into something else, flipping, rinse, repeat over and over. You probably reach that in like 6 or 7 months, and you probably wouldn't have even gotten back to that price in a year. That's just sometimes the way things play out. But I will also get really stubborn about, I take a lot of personal pride in being right about a move that I make, even if it's not publicly shown. For myself internally, I want to know that I am good at finding the next big thing, that I'm good at finding the cool thing. So I will hold on to that. Also out of fear of maybe I sell that tonight and then the next morning I wake up and see some post on Instagram or Twitter that I went up 120%, which is like a pretty bogus thing and it's not going to happen kind of deal, but it's a real feeling. And I don't know if any of you guys also struggle with that, but I do. I think we also just need to focus on like doing things in our means, because a lot of burnout happens in the hobby when people get card rich, cash poor, and you're not even really card rich because you're not making money until you've actually sold the thing. Like having the thing does not equal money necessarily. Trade value, sure. But anything can happen to it at any time. I think that there's a balance to be had of making sure that we're not just hoarding all these cards and then kind of taking that as our pride and ego boosting thing, because those are the times when sometimes we can get in trouble and burn ourselves off on the fact that, if the market takes a dive or a cool off time, it can be very stressful because you've got money tied into that and you've got bills to pay, families to support, yourself, things you want to do, all of that. I had one more note. Oh, I was thinking too about a lot of this clutter, I think, comes from the beginning of the pandemic time where, you could submit, well, just before that too, where you could submit basically anything to PSA, and if you got a 9 or a 10, you're making money. And we submitted a lot of not so great cards in that era, and now they're coming back after the backlog. And we don't know what to do with those. We clearly can't sell them for what they were going for. You might have 10 plus of the same card graded, and it's kind of like the back burner thing that you want to get to. It's not fun or sexy to work with. It's not the thing you want to sell on the sale per se. So if you don't want to sell it, think about other things you can do with it. If it's not something that belongs in your personal collection, maybe it serves as a giveaway. Maybe someone else wants it, or maybe you do sell it, or maybe there's a kid in your neighborhood that you can start their collection. Maybe it's a player they love, even if it's a card that's not valuable to you as an adult. It might be really cool to them, Find something to do with it though, but don't let it just stack on your shelf and drag you down like an anchor if that's stressing you out. So I know this video is kind of long. I know I kind of rambled, kind of went over all those things, but I want to hear what you guys think. Have you ever done this with your collection? Do you plan on doing this with your collection? I plan on doing this pretty thoroughly with mine pretty soon. Peace and love. See ya.